I've settled down in this town, full of light, full of sun, quiet place, and the wind is whispering. Far from troubles and doubts, there's no need for any rush. Close your eyes and try to realize. But still I'm searching for a better life. And still I'm not sure what it's all about. The meaning of living is still my guide, and hope is what is keeping me alive. Going fast, going slow, climbing high, falling low. When you know what your aim is, it all makes sense. What you hear, yes or no, who is staying here, who will follow. Go ahead and never turn around. But still I'm searching for a better life. And still I'm not sure what it's all about. The meaning of living is still my guide, and hope is what is keeping me alive.
Thank you so much for your patience.
Miles away and many roads you've seen this.
My name is Jason. I'm your host for today's show. You're listening to the Brand Identity Design Podcast. I'm joined along with me on Clubhouse. I have this wonderful, amazing person and also a close friend of mine. Her name is Tanya Grant. So Tanya, thank you first of all, for giving me the opportunity to interview you on this podcast. We are broadcasting live on LinkedIn and Clubhouse at the same time. And I just want to thank each and everybody who has been supporting the show through and throughout, season 3, season 2, and season 1. So let's actually get into our conversation. I don't want to spend too much time. So today's topic is stop being the best kept secret. Okay, and during this episode, Tanya will speak about one of the greatest challenges for an entrepreneur is not about creating a product, managing employees, or working out finances. It's really about marketing your business and making people care about what you have to offer as a business, even if nobody knows you or your business. So you want to deep dive into that conversation, how to be known, how not to be just a secret in the small piece, of location you are at, how to come out and be known. So I want to quickly give you guys an overview of who Tanya is and why I decided to have this brand specialist on my show. So Tanya is a solution-based brand specialist out in the UK, multiple international #1 best-selling co-author, award-winning entrepreneur, co-founder of the Queens in the Business Club, and the founder and CCI of multidisciplinary company called the TNG Designs Group Limited. She has collaborated with global brands, including the ones like Topshop, Topman, Dorothy Perkins, and many more, leading with her primary values of guide, grounding, and growth. Now, Tanya helps small to medium-sized businesses globally, not just in the UK, stand out from the competition so that they win new businesses effortlessly. Now, through her creative design, eye for innovation, she has helped thousands of entrepreneurs build the reputation of their brands so that you can stay visible and sell without selling. Now, so I want to welcome officially Tanya to the Brand Identity Design Podcast, and let's have some sound effect, guys, for Tanya. Let's cheer her up. Welcome, Tanya, to the
I
show.
love it. I'm loving all the tech. Do you know what? I feel like this is the most advanced like interview ever with all the sound effects. I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for being here on a short notice. People who are actually new to the show, listening to us on LinkedIn, I want to make you guys aware that this is an interactive live podcast. So if you do have questions for Tanya, as we progress through our conversation, even on Clubhouse, please hold on to those thoughts. Around 30 to 40 minutes, within the show, we should open up the space for Q&As. You would be able to come and interact with my guest directly. All right. So if you're on LinkedIn, if you want to look up my guest, you should be able to find my guest details, Tanya's details, under the details section. All right. So let me actually go ahead with the questionnaire. I want to first understand, Tanya. There's a lot of designers out there, a lot of people who are into marketing and many other different areas of expertise. What inspired you to kind of get into branding first of all?
Well, do you know what's funny? I didn't know it as branding to begin with. I just knew it as I love creating things and I love helping people get from one state to the next. But I didn't quite understand the fact that it was known as branding. And it wasn't till I want to say really maybe about 5 or 6 years ago that I then started realizing, oh, this is really what I'm doing is branding. I'm helping people to rediscover their brands and rediscover who they are as a person, rediscover their messages, their values, all that kind of stuff. And as much as I was doing that subconsciously, I didn't realize that that was what it was labeled as. So really, it was just a case of knowing the fact that, do you know what, I have creativity within me and I love getting it out via drawing, via illustrations, via somehow digitally. So how can I then apply that to helping others? And I love helping others, and especially when it became to, when it came to the point of actually helping businesses, new businesses get started. I love seeing their faces just light up, just literally just seeing or understanding. I was like, oh, okay, this is what it should look like, or helping their reality, their ideas, sorry, become realities. It's such a cool, I guess, position to be in, and a cool place to sort of like a cool thing to be able to witness even more so when it comes to things like this. And getting into branding, as I said, it's not something that I knew exactly what it was to begin with. I just knew that I love drawing and I love creating and I loved helping people. And this, I guess, was my vehicle for it, right? It kind of developed into branding itself and it naturally flowed in that kind of a direction. So yeah, so that's really how just from the love of drawing. So yeah, and it evolved. It evolved.
I like the fact that you said that when startups, when they start, when they light up, it just brings happiness and joy. Because, you, and the thing about what I like about designers and people who are into the branding space is that we are able to articulate an idea and bring into reality. The whole process of you transitioning and getting it out and you seeing how it looks and you observing it, it's just motivating and it's very very inspirational. So Tanya, so kudos to you on that. So thank you for being in this space. Let me actually get into this conversation, the juicy side of our conversation. Now I remember reading this quote. Now people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill, they want to buy a quarter-inch hole. Now this has been said by Theodore Levitt. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He's from Harvard Business School professor. Okay, and there's also another study which I came across. It's according to the American Marketing Association. An average consumer sees up to 10,000 brand messages a day. Uh, you know, on a daily basis through Instagram, social media, print advertisement, through different mediums. Okay, now but out of those 10,000 opportunities, the customer will only buy from a select few brands. I'm also reading this book called as Utility, Youtility, by Jay Baer. It's a good book, and I think everybody should give it a try. He states that you cannot survive by shouting the loudest and relying solely on interruption marketing. You cannot proclaim that you're featuring the biggest sale every day to succeed in your business, which I find very fascinating and makes a lot of sense to me. So a lot of decisions are actually made at a more emotional level, according to me, when it comes to the psychology and understanding of people, human behavior. So what I want to ask you, Tanya, is that how do you make people care about your brand? And how can you ensure that your brand really stands out from this whole ocean of messaging, clustered and noisy environment?
That's such a cool question. And do you know what? I've kind of like come to the realization that yes, they need to care about you and your brand, right? But at the same time, they equally need to care about their own brands. And here's why I'm saying this is because if they don't care about their own brands, they're not going to understand the amount of value that they actually need to give themselves. And if they aren't giving value to themselves, they're equally not putting themselves out there as they should. So they're not going to recognize the value within you, yourself. But you as a person, you as the one who is selling, you as the one who is delivering or serving that person, the audience that you're trying to target and so forth. Yes, you do definitely need to make sure that you are standing out as much as you should be, right? Especially when it comes to your brand. But you do that in a way that resonates and you start connecting with people that doesn't force it down their throats. And I think that's the best way to always go about it. Don't ever force anything down anybody's throats. It's always about relationship building. It's always about connecting with people on a level that literally resonates or resonates with the commonality factor. Because when you do that, then things naturally happen. Things naturally start getting attracted to each other or to one another and so forth. And I think what I'm trying to say here is when you start showing up in that kind of a light, your audience will naturally start seeing the fact that, you know what, okay, I see what they're doing. So now let me do the same for myself. Let me start caring a lot for my own brand as well. It's almost like being that representative, right? And showing up in the way that you expect your audience to show up. Because if you're not doing, then why should they? So I hope that kind of makes sense. So I believe that they need to care about their own selves or learn to care about their own selves. And when they learn how to care about their own selves, they then start appreciating the value in others as well, even more so.
So what you're trying to say is that by having a brand and expecting people to love your brand, may happen, but you have to start instilling that love and compassion by yourself. You need to love your brand first. What you're trying
Yeah,
to build, it's your
yeah.
baby. It's what you're investing on, and have good amount of love for your own brand. And the next thing which you said is that value it. Okay, do not force. Okay, do not force things. Build relationship. Like attracts like. So find the people who have the same energy as you, and you should be able to find an audience who has similar interests and values as you have. Am I understanding this right, Tanya?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I think you're naturally going to have similar, with what you're sharing, what you're putting out there, you're naturally going to attract others who actually like those things as well. And it's talking about the idea of alignment. And it's coming from a place of equally, when you are putting things out there, you're helping people to feel inspired. You're helping people to feel moved by what it is that they do and equally what they could potentially do. Because if you think about it, they're in the state right now of looking for something, looking for the answer, looking for the next step or the what is their next option to take, their next move to make. And you're helping them to feel inspired to just go out there and do it, and to just get on and do what it is that they need to do. So I think when you can come from a place of inspiration as well, then you start winning in a whole different kind of a way. Your brand naturally just starts shining. Your brand, people don't recognize it as a brand because even in today's day and age, and Jason, you tell me as well if you found this, but people are still confused as to what a brand is, you know, understanding what it is in the first place. People don't quite see it as a brand. They just get to see it as, oh, that's such and such. Oh, that's what they do. Okay, cool. but not realizing that all those little intricacies, all those little elements, all those little habits or values, in fact, not habits, I'm not going to use that word, but their values, their beliefs, what it is that they really, fight for, all that kind of stuff. That's the elements of their brand. But the average Joe won't recognize it as a brand. They're just going to recognize it. Oh, that's a really cool trait. I like that. Let me follow them. Let me find out even more about them. Let me connect with them somehow, and start asking my questions. But until you educate them about it, the fact, or you label it as a brand or you label it as a certain thing, people aren't really going to recognize it as being a brand as per se. Only if you're in that profession, or if you're in that light, in that way of thinking to begin with, then yeah, of course you're going to know it as a brand. But the average Joe won't know that. They're just going to know it as a really cool personality trait, or they're going to know it as a really cool thing that, you know what, I love the fact that they're connecting with me on this, or I love the fact that, this really resonates with me. Let me continue to find out even more. And that's okay. But what matters is what you're actually saying to people. What matters is how you're actually connecting with them. You're not leading them down a crazy path to begin with, and you're influencing them in a positive kind of a way. That's what matters, But yeah.
I'm totally with you there. So Tanya, so that brings me to the follow-up question which I had asked you initially. So now social media is really pressurizing entrepreneurs and people who have brands, small or big. It's forcing us to actually shout, yell, scream out to our audience, right? Because they want our attention. So according to you, how can we ensure that we're not harassing or interrupting a person or the individual in their life, still are able to communicate who you are as a brand, distill that message? How do you think this
Yeah.
would be possible?
I think you do it similarly to what I've just said a minute ago. You touch base on that commonality factor, and you hit it's almost like hitting a nerve, but a good kind of a nerve, in the sense where you're literally hitting that pain point or problem that is familiar to your audience, even if you haven't met them yet. And then I think this is equally where it comes into play, where you do need to know your audience, when you do need to know the general characteristics, what causes them pain, what causes them problems or issues, annoyances, what do they get pissed off at, all that kind of stuff. And equally, what's your solution to it? It's coming with the solution all the time, leading with inspiration, leading with the idea of, you know what, I hear what you're saying, or I see what you're doing, and I know that, and I've experienced that. But here's what I did to overcome it, or here's what I'm doing right now to work through it. Because at the end of the day, people obviously want to see you win. Naturally, people do. But people also want to understand that, do you know what, it's not all airy fairy roses and rainbows all the time. There is hard work to be done wherever, depending on whatever your product or your service is about. And I think that should also be shared. It's understanding that vulnerability can actually be somebody's strength, and especially the strength of a brand. That person, that being, that person who is offering the service or the product that, to their audience. Sharing vulnerability is actually a really cool thing to be able to do when you need to. Obviously, keep it super relevant. That's another thing. But yeah, when you share vulnerability, when you share the truth, when you share, the feeling behind why you're doing certain things in the first place, or what led you to your vision or to your purpose, that's a super cool thing to be able to share. And again, when you get to touch base on that commonality factor, I can't stress that enough, that commonality factor, you start hitting things like, you know what, I remember that time in my life when that happened to me, that whole nostalgic feel. And then you start hitting things of other familiarity aspects. And that's super cool to begin with. And a lot of people overlook that because they're just there for the sell. I got to sell. Let me slap a price on everything. Let everybody just see what it is. Do you know what I mean? But the minute you just strip that back a bit, no matter how much you really need it, you got to go back to basics and think about, how do you like to be spoken to? And I think, as much as we are shouting above the competition, yes, you do need to do that, but you do it in a way that you're actually speaking to your audience. naturally, you know?
So
So
it's
yeah.
all about crafting a message, okay,
Mm,
which speaks to your audience,
yeah.
uh, not only to their needs but also at an emotional level, so that you can bring that connectivity, that connection.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and yes, you need to differentiate yourself from your competition. Those things goes without saying.
Hmm.
Okay, but you need to really address the underlying thing, which is what's in for the customer, how we serve
Yes.
them.
What's in it for them?
Yeah,
Mm.
and as long as you're able to answer this piece of puzzle for your targeted audience, I think they should be able to make connections, and they should be able to really start valuing what you bring to the table. Am I right, Tanya?
Mm. I totally agree. And understanding this part as well. So there is a difference, a strong difference between knowing what a personal brand is in comparison to what a business brand is as well. And the way to sort of like differentiate between the two is understanding that with your business brand, it's always going to be about them, meaning your audience, your customer, your client, right? The outcome is always about them. The values are always about what you want that outcome to be about them, what you want them to experience. But your personal brand is where it literally becomes about you because it's personal. It's all about you. So then your values naturally reflect what you're about. Your beliefs are what you're about and what your fight is. I spoke about that a minute ago. But here's the funny part is not the funny really, but the coincidental thing is because your business is yours, naturally some of your values and your beliefs are going to cross over. But it's always being mindful that anytime you're thinking about what your values are, the outcome that you want for the outcome that you want for your audience, whoever you're speaking to at that point, it's always going to be about them when it comes to your business. But equally, even the audience that you're speaking to, when it is your personal brand that you're introducing, you're sharing your own experience, you're sharing you're sharing your beliefs, you're sharing your fight. So those values are always going to be about you. But yeah, so I think that's something cool to be to always be mindful of for sure. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love
Mm.
this, how we are progressing with this conversation. Before I actually move into my next question, I wanted to actually highlight something which I read by Google. It's about their
Mm.
organization. According to Google, Google has this mission wherein it likes to organize the world's information, make it universally accessible and useful.
Mm.
Okay, so a company, Google says that a company without a compelling culture is a person without a personality, flesh, bones, but no life force and no soul at all. Would you
Mm.
agree?
Wow, that's quite the statement. So they're saying that. So say that one more time. Sorry,
Okay,
Jason.
a company
This,
without a compelling culture is like a
yeah,
person without a personality, flesh, and bones.
yeah,
No life force,
yeah.
no soul at all.
Yeah, they really went deep with that, huh? They cut
Yeah.
straight to the bone. You are lifeless. Forget you. You have no. Okay, so that's quite deep. But however, it's true to a certain extent, in the sense where if you don't have, there's something that I call like VPV, and I know you'll probably recognize it as something else, but it's pretty much your vision, your purpose, and your values, right? If you don't have those, it's a difference between you falling flat, being lifeless, being all of what Google was saying, right? Versus you standing in your truth, standing in your brand purpose and your values and your vision, standing in what it is that makes you and your business a business, but standing out above your competition because you've recognized by figuring out what those 3 points are, what your where it is that you're heading, who it is that you're talking to, and you're doing that with clarity as well. You get to speak all the more clearer. You get to put a message out there that actually makes sense. How many times have you come across a brand without them knowing that they are officially a brand, and literally they've just slapped the world at the social media wall or digital wall, whatever it may be, and it just doesn't make sense. Things like from the simplest of points, when the fonts are all over the place, there's like 1,001 fonts for the same person, and then equally 1,001 colors for the same person as well. And it's like, that level of consistency truly does matter. It starts from there. If you don't have that foundation, the VPV, the whole physiology, if you like, or equally what's known as the perception for your brand, if you don't quite get what that is, you know, it's really not going to
It's a lost
resonate
battle,
well.
right? It's a lost
Yes, it
battle.
is. It's a lost battle, sadly. You'll find out the hard way. You'll find out the hard way. And can I just say, there are times where you will have to just rediscover what that is for yourself as you grow, because you are naturally growing and your values and your beliefs are changing. So they should always be addressed. They should always be looked at, and to make sure that they still resonate with who you are today, not who you were when you first started. It's about who you are today, and do they still match who you are today? So I wonder, each and every one of you guys in the audience and listening on either Clubhouse or on LinkedIn as well, ask yourself the same question. Who are you today in the sense of your business or your personal brand? Do your values, your vision, and your purpose still match that? And if they don't, well, that's when you start needing to readdress them.
And and
You
and
know?
and and ask yourself if you're following what you're preaching.
Yeah, and oh my goodness, that's such a big one. And do you know what? It's funny, like some of the ladies that I work with, especially in the Queens and Business Club, we're forever asking ourselves this: are we actually practicing what we're preaching? you know? And equally in my own business, Tan, am I actually practicing what I'm preaching? you know? And I think we have to assess that, because we're good to lead, right? We're amazing at becoming leaders or being leaders, and we're guiders at the same time as well, right? But ask yourself, folks, are you actually practicing what you're preaching? Because that's huge, you know. But yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to deep dive into this conversation a little further because we want to speak about market research and product market fit. I want to actually
Mm-hmm.
highlight two specific individuals. One is Steve Jobs and Henry Ford. Let me start with Henry
Mm-hmm.
Ford. Henry Ford said once that if I would ask my customer what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse. People do not know what they want until you show it to them. That's why
Mm-hmm.
you cannot rely on market research always. Okay, now this is
Mm-hmm.
one, and it could be argumentative. Okay, let me
Mm-hmm.
speak about Steve Jobs. Well, Steve Jobs said kind of the same thing. He said, some people say to give the customer what they want, but that's not my approach. Our job is to figure out what are they really interested in, what are they going to want before. Okay, our job is to figure
What do they
out
need?
what
Mm.
they are going to want before they do. A little bit
Mm-hmm.
of tongue twister there with that code, but I think you get the idea. Okay,
No,
so
I do.
our task is to read things which are not yet a page, and people, I personally feel from both of these examples, most people misinterpret the code because it indicates that you cannot rely on market research and understanding an overall context. But I think product market fit is kind of important along with research. Okay, so now my question to you is that how much
Mm-hmm.
you should rely on market research as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and how
Mm-hmm.
important is to analyze a product market fit.
Do you know what? Yeah. I've recently appreciated this. And bottom line, know your numbers. Because knowing your numbers and not knowing your numbers is pretty much the difference of you continuing down the path like walking with a blindfold on, quite literally. And you're going to again throw the world at the social media marketing platform and whatever digital marketing platform, and you're not going to know what works properly until you actually start knowing your numbers. Analyze what is your we talk about KPIs, right? Your key performance indicators and so forth. You do have, it's boring, but you know what, you have to look at it. Yes, it is time consuming, but you have to look at it, because if you don't, you're not going to know, is this campaign that I'm putting out there even worth continuing with? You're not going to know if this message is actually being resonated with if you don't look at your numbers. And it's literally as simple as checking out your followers weekly, checking out the amount of engagement that you're getting on your social media platforms weekly, not daily. Don't be too crazy with it, but weekly you get a general idea as to what's happening. If you have funnels, if you have your websites, all this information can be found out. And if you don't know how to find it out, do a little Google search, to work it out. But yeah, you do. I believe to a certain extent, you actually do have to know your numbers. Now, should you be obsessed with them? Obsession obviously can be unhealthy at times, but I think you do need to be aware of these things, because your numbers will literally help you out big time. And it will help to regain that focus for yourself, and it will help you to understand, okay, yeah, so that particular campaign didn't work out too tough, so do you know what, let me work it out this way, because I see the numbers are a little bit higher this direction, so let me go for this one. See what the response is. Your response is another indicator. So I think we need these measurements to be able to understand them. So, and it's very easy to be ignorant to them. It is super easy to be ignorant, and let me just focus on the art, what it is that I do. But somebody, if it's not you, somebody in your business, somebody who manages your finances, who manages whatever it is to do with the growth of your business, technically you should be that person to a certain extent, that you need to be looking at it. Don't be ignorant to your numbers. I've learned that all too recently, and you learn the hard way, believe you me, if you don't pay attention to them. So yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I completely agree with you that do not rely on your numbers. Okay, your numbers can only explain things up to a certain extent, but sometimes you need to go a little further and beyond that to figure things out. It's all about
Yeah.
experimenting. Marketing is all about experimenting. People who are
Oh,
actually listening,
absolutely.
when I said about product market fit, okay, what we are trying to actually explain is that if you're selling a product, okay, it's important that you get it into the hand of your customers at a very early stage, because you want to get as much feedback as possible from them to understand what is their reaction, what they think about it. Okay, because people are opinionated, but those opinions can really help you to understand how you want to shape and structurize it. The sooner you start it, the better. If they are willing to pay for it, nothing like it. If not, give it for free. At least try to use that as a, I would say that, use that to do your market, use that as a stepping foundation to do market research. And as you're
Absolutely.
experimenting with it, have your KPIs in place, things how you measure, because not everybody answers things the right way. That's why you need to rely on
No.
sample size data, right?
And can I add to that as well?
Yeah, sure.
So who does it really, really well, and probably, and unless you really think about it yourself, you won't realize that that's exactly what Apple is doing. Anytime they release a new phone, anytime they release a new product or whatever it is, they don't have it 100% nailed, at the point of launch. It is literally like, do you know what? This is as good as it's going to get right now, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be glitches, but let's put it out there. Let's see what happens, and our market will tell us, and our audience will tell us, and that's what happens. Usually, they put their product out, people buy it, they'll make a complaint, and if it's enough of that complaint, well, then Apple will know what to target and what to,
That's a really good point,
you know,
Tanya, which you're making,
yeah,
because
what to fix and share.
yeah, because I think what you're highlighting is that what Apple is doing, you have to keep your ego aside when it comes to a product launch. You need to agree that all your products or services which you launch, there's no guarantee that it has to be 100% success. Things can
Exactly
go
that.
sideways. Okay, what you should do is you should be willing to listen, pay attention to what your audience is trying to say, your clients are saying, right? That's what you're trying to say, and keep a close eye and see how things progress. And if you think it can be improved and you have the capacity to improve it, go ahead and do it. If it's not working out, then maybe try something else. That was my
And
follow-up
that's,
question,
yeah,
right? What if it's
yeah.
not a good product market fit? What should an entrepreneur
Ah,
do?
move on. Now, so move on. So what the beauty about being an entrepreneur is, and you touched base on it a minute ago, Jason, the idea of we are forever experimenting. So we are literally mad scientists, right? We are forever just, it's all trial and error. All of this stuff is trial and error stuff. And I think naturally you're going to know what will really, really sit well with yourself. And this is by way of your values. This is why I'm saying know your VPV from the beginning, or from as soon as you can find out about it, work it out. And yes, it takes time, but it takes time for a good reason, because it's super valuable to your business and to who you are as a brand, for the making of your brand, right? And, don't get me wrong, this is something that I'm still boosting on my side as well. But I found, just because I tackled these particular 3 parts, it's made a huge difference to people getting to know me. So this is why I cannot stress enough to my clients that I've had before. This is what I do. I help them to rediscover what this is for themselves. And it makes such a big difference. The outcome of the project, the outcome of what it is they're actually putting out there and sharing out there, it makes such a huge difference. And just going back to your question, as I said, we're all mad scientists. So what naturally sits well with your values, go with it. If it doesn't work, figure out where the holes are by addressing your numbers. Figure out, okay, do you know what? Not many people resonated with this part, so let me try it this way. And if you get even super stuck, reach out to your community. That's why you should always build that first. Your community will tell you. People will tell you, your supporters will tell you, your audience that you have. If you don't have an audience yet, they'll then ask people who you really value their opinion on, and ask them for their opinion. Ask them. It's a case of asking. And I think as entrepreneurs, we start off alone, and sometimes we feel we have to make all these decisions alone. But the reality is, no, you don't have to do it alone. There are so many people that,
you remember that quote, it takes a village to raise a child, and I'm assuming
oh
the
my
child is
goodness,
the
yes.
company.
Yeah, it applies to so many different situations. It's not literally just a child, it's also your business. It's also what it is that you're trying to share with the masses. Ask for help, and you'll be surprised at who comes to lend a hand, and is supportive of you.
I'm glad that you bought community, because I was actually reading a bit about the Cigna study. Okay, but so almost half of the Americans. Okay, and I think this is not just Americans. I think this is overall. But okay, since I'm referring to the study says almost half of the Americans feel alone and isolated. So according to the 2018 study by Cigna, the Cigna study suggests that the use of technology and social media has minimal influence on a person's feeling of isolation. The study also found that face-to-face interactions, physical and mental wellness, and work-life balance has been the greatest impact on loneliness. So as a result of this, a lot of people are craving for community now more than ever. So for business owners, this means community is a critical component to your success. However, forming a community does require much more than just gathering people in a small space. It can be digital or virtual or physical.
Yeah.
So my question to you, since you bought the word community, is that why building a community is critical to your brand success based on your personal life experiences. I see a lot of tech giants, doing this nowadays a lot. What is your take on this?
I think building a community is something that gets overlooked big time. And actually, in fact, people are doing it already without realizing they're doing it. And I think the minute you're aware of it is the minute you're going to start utilizing your community a hell of a lot better. And reason being is because when you start realizing who's in your community, you're going to start talking to your community a lot better. You're going to start reaching out to certain people within your community. That whole saying of your network is your net worth? Well, that's because people have recognized who's in their community. Sometimes we're out here trying to look for new people all the time to as followers or as clients and so forth. But look within your community, and you'll be surprised at who still needs your help. Who's ready to work with you, and not just as a client, as a collaborator. And people in your community could also be your competition. But guess what? Competition is not an evil thing. Competition is super. Yes, you do need to stand out for them, but they can be super valuable to you too, because they can also become your collaborators. And that's what's super, super key. So yeah, know your community. I think it's, and there's the other aspect as well. When you do know them, you get to speak to them better, as I said before, but equally you're building that relationship factor it is super, super key to knowing, to knowing how you can help them. But you're doing
Absolutely.
it with with genuinity. I can't even say the word genuinity. That word. You're doing it with that.
Don't worry, Tanya. I also face
Yes.
struggle, sometimes with certain.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So I
I
mean,
love it.
I like your answer because community helps you to create more awareness about your brand, helps you to
Mm-hmm.
understand your customer better. You can predict your outcomes better, and it also helps you to build brand loyalty in the long run, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Mm-hmm.
of pros and benefits to it. As an entrepreneur, I feel the benefit to the community, which you also highlighted, is that you have a better understanding of who you are as a leader. You continue learning and you become a
Mm-hmm.
better person as you progress. So it'll help you to
Yes.
learn, help you to build a better network. You have a much more better support system, not only for your organization but also the audience you're catering to. You're
Mm-hmm.
educating them, okay, you're strengthening them, and your knowledge is also increasing, as you're building up your business. Because
Mm-hmm.
most people think that when you start a business you need to have a solid understanding of everything. Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
practically next to impossible to know everything when you start a business. I think it's a process, and it should give itself some time as you progress. I just want to be open. I want to let you guys know that we're going to be starting Q&A. So people who are on Clubhouse, I have sent out invitations to as many people as I could. Okay, so if you've been tuning into the show for the past 20 minutes or so, feel free to raise your hand and come up. I already have people on LinkedIn who have actually joined our stage. Thank you, Thomas and Alma. And
Mm-hmm.
so far on Clubhouse, we have Ibuka and Shim who has joined our conversation. If anybody else would like to join the conversation, please raise your hand. I would be happy to bring you up. I got one final question though.
Of course.
So Tanya, aren't audience, okay, what you're catering to, and the community, aren't they the same thing, or is there a difference?
Yeah, there's a difference. And do you know what? It's only till recently that I discovered the difference. And isn't it funny until you get till you present yourself with these questions or these ideas that you realize them, it's not until those moments. And what I discovered is your audience are the people who you don't know yet, but your community are those who have met you in some way, shape, or form, and they're still following you and they're still engaging with you. So that's the difference, in my opinion. And I think, obviously, not I think, I know they are both super, super powerful and super valuable, even more so to know and to appreciate and to make sure you're speaking to properly. But yeah,
That makes
so
sense.
that was my very short
Yeah,
answer.
no,
But
it's a very
yeah.
powerful answer because
Mm,
you don't know your audience, because it's possible that you may have a persona in mind which you generally
hmm.
create in the beginning, but as
Yeah.
time progresses, this buyer persona or customer persona keeps
Hmm.
evolving and changing, right? Depending
Hmm.
upon what
Absolutely.
information which you acquire in the long
Hmm.
run.
Hmm.
Once you have your audience interact with your business, and if there is a relationship which has been formed, and if this
Hmm.
user becomes a part of the community, they automatically become active members of the community. So it's no longer
Hmm.
an audience is a part of your community. Yes, I think your answer is very simple, and
Yeah.
I completely understand it. So
Yeah. And I think they change. Some will stay. Your audience will stay. Those who stay as well, that's who they naturally evolve into your community, right? They start building that up even more and more and more. But I think, in my opinion, your audience are those who you're trying to reach out to. So it's your target audience, right? It's those who you're trying to speak to, but they don't quite know you yet. But until they sort of stay with you and they sort of as I said, keep liking and following and watching, even as a ghost watcher, they're still part of your community, and I think that's how they naturally evolve and become that. But yeah.
that's really lovely. I was just
Mm.
thinking, so in that case, what would be your advice in terms of building up a community? Is it just
Mm.
creating a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group? Is that all it? And
No, it's more than that. Because I think
how,
obviously
how
if you can have
you get my question, right? How
no,
do
I
you
do,
know?
I do.
How do you know like you're on the right track?
Yeah. when you'll know naturally, because your followers or your engagement starts building and building and building. Communities, yes, you can naturally have them on, obviously, especially as private Facebook groups, right? Similar to what we have as the Queens and Business Club. But equally on my side as well, I also have a smaller community where people are, they have a what's the word? A souped up version of me. So they have a concentrated version of you, right? That's your general local community, I guess, if you want to call it that. But your wider community, the people who do generally engage with you, not on those specific groups or specific private members areas, are still, as I said before, members of your community, because they're constantly engaging, they're constantly showing likes or watching your videos and so forth. All those, when you start seeing your numbers increase, your engagement increase, the interaction side of things increase, the views increase, that's when you know things are increasing quite naturally. Again, it's all within the numbers. This is why you got to watch your numbers and not be ignorant to your numbers. It's super easy to just take things for granted at times. And yeah, the minute you start put too much focus on that, but the minute you start looking at them, you get to understand, okay, do you know what? I recognize that on that specific day, I shared a specific message. So let me do more of that. Not exactly of the same message, but let me share something along the lines of that again, and think about what those consistency elements are. How can you keep it consistent? Because again, I've noticed when I haven't been consistent in certain areas, I've noticed numbers dropped in comparison to when I have been consistent in certain areas or certain messages that I've shared. I've noticed numbers increase. So think about it for yourselves as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate this very, very much, and I think that you need to keep a track of your numbers, just to understand how you're progressing ahead. So guys, we're gonna start Q&A now. All right, so let's go. We're gonna start with Clubhouse. So I want to see. Okay, we have Ibuka on stage. Ibuka, welcome. I see that you're new to my podcast. Remember, this is a live show, and we are recording live. Do you have a question? Is there anything you'd like to contribute to this conversation?
Hey, Ibuka. So I know Ibuka and also Shim as well. But yeah, carry on. Go for it.
Yeah, Ibuka, please flash your mic if you're available. Oh, nice. High five to you, my friend. Welcome.
Hi, hi. Good evening from my own end. Yeah, Tanya, hi. Good evening from my end. Like I said, yeah, I'm excited to be here. So I'll be listening to, if I have question, I'll ask. And if I have contribution, I'll also make. Appreciate.
All right, all right. So I'm gonna just move you back to the audience. If you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Please come back onto the stage. Thank you. I want to welcome Shim. Thank you so much for joining the stage. I see that you're also new to this conversation, which we usually have every Wednesday at 12 Eastern Standard Time. So do you have a question, Kim or Shim? I'm so sorry.
She'll tell you about yourself, Jason. So Shim is actually one of my colleagues at the Queenston Business Club, and we have a few others in the audience. Hello, lovely people. Thank you so much for joining. But,
You're welcome to invite each and every member. I just want to say thank you guys for your love and support, and I know how Tanya works. Like, I've not really met her in real life, but I know like how she thinks. I have an overview of it, and I think she's pretty cool. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. So Shim, go ahead. Do you have a question, or is there anything you'd like to contribute to this conversation?
I do actually, Jason. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak and obviously share and ask questions. I've actually got a question for Tan, because this is around ideas. So, like as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we have creative minds that won't actually stop ever.
Yep.
In fact, like, in the middle of the night and you get an idea. But, what's the best thing somebody that's starting out or somebody that's in business already, but ideas keep flowing, but they don't end up sharing it, or they don't end up sort of doing anything or taking any actions towards it? Like imagine having an idea to yourself, right? And then all of a sudden someone comes along and you see it on Facebook or something on social media. It's like, hey, that person stole my idea. But you can't own the idea if nobody knows it's yours. So what I'm saying is that when we have ideas and we're kind of in that creative flow with branding, our values and all sorts of things, what would you say, what would be your top tip for that person to actually not allow that idea to go to waste, if that makes sense?
No, it makes total sense. And thank you for asking, Shim. Do you know what? I say go with it anyway, because guess what? It's coming from you. It's not coming from them. You're going to have a different take on it. And you're going to, again, this is why it's super important to know what your VPV is, because you're going to come at it from whatever you've discovered at that point. Your product, even though it may appear to be the same as somebody else. Let's look at Coca-Cola and Pepsi. How alike are those two brands, for goodness sakes? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Imagine if Pepsi said, no, I don't want to do it. But Pepsi still went ahead and did it. Do you know what I mean? But they are different because they have their own values. They have their own beliefs and messages to share. And they're equally, obviously Coca-Cola is, in my opinion, still probably higher than Pepsi. However, they're still doing pretty good in their own right, So I always say, don't let somebody else's ideas who have already done it. And can I just say as well, there is no new idea. It's just the way that you tackle it that becomes unique and really super cool. That's what makes a difference, So if you've seen something out there, number one, it's a good thing because then you know that, oh, wait, okay, it's being picked up already and people actually kind of like this. So I've got something to stand off of, I've got something, a leg to stand on. So let me keep going, keep pushing with it. And that's all I ever encourage anybody to do. Just keep pushing your idea, because guess what? If you decide that somebody else has it, so you're not going to do it, imagine the next idea and then the next idea and then the next idea. And before you know it, 10 years have gone down the line and you still haven't done it yet and done whatever it is yet because you kept pushing it on the back burner, So don't do that. Don't do that. And just go for it.
Love that.
That's what I say.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
Shim.
Yeah,
Yay.
I love that too. In fact, what I wanted to share, amplify on what you said, Tanya. I read a lot of things which are economical and economy related. So I came across this model called as business model canvas. It's also known as BMC. Okay, and I have actually an animated series, not by me, but I have collected an animated series which speaks about idea to execution. What are the different stages to it? Okay, there are 9 building blocks according to BMC. One is value proposition, segmenting your customers, what kind of channels you want to use, how to build relationship, what is your revenue stream, what is the key resources you require to make it happen, what kind of partners and activities you need to do, what is the core structure of your business. Okay, now I know I'm saying this fast. Basically, if you have an idea, you need to know how to prototype the idea first to see if it is a good fit in the market. Okay, what I can do is, Shim, if you can DM me, or maybe I'll post it on chat. I'll link the playlist to this series. Have a look. Okay, I think this is very effective. I also send the same thing to my clients also when they are kind of confused which direction they want to head. I think this example really works out. Yeah, that's what I wanted to just amplify on what you said. So, but thank you so much, Shim. Shim, do you have a follow-up question before we move ahead?
No, all good. That has been really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Shim.
Thank you. I want to welcome Tiffany. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Are you available right now? Please flash your mic. She might be away from her phone. So let's actually move to Thomas. Thomas, thank you so much. Oh, Tiffany's there. Okay, give me a sec. Thomas, we'll be back. So Tiffany, how are you? Nice to see you.
Hello, I just wasn't on the screen next to the mute button.
Oh, nice. We all struggle with the mute icon. So do you have a question? Is there anything you'd like to contribute to this conversation?
I just love the way that it's, sometimes I just personally, my name's Tiffany Warner, by the way, and what a great talk. And thank you so much for sharing. And and having this show, Jason, and with your guest, and talking about being our own brand. Sometimes it's so complex for some people that I personally love to be original, and can you hear me okay? Hold on a second.
Yeah, we have you. We got you.
Okay, great. Sometimes it's well, I love to be original, and that's just me. I but then there's some people that have issues with standing out, and they are afraid to be original, because they a lack of self-esteem, and or whatever it is that makes them feel uncomfortable. And I'm a licensed counselor, and there's a lot of times I've told people, my clients, because they're so creative and so beautiful inside and out, and they get insecure, or sometimes a little bit picked on, or afraid to shine like they're meant to. And I tell them, why would you want to blend in and be like everyone else when you were born to stand out?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way that they're going to blend in like sheep or mix in like cattle, or like be one of everyone else, when they're just born to shine and born to be original, and make the world a different place, because they light the room up when they walk into it, kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the question is, I guess, is like, how do you inspire, encourage people to want to do something that might be risk taking or stand outside the box or whatever, when we believe in them because we can
Mm-hmm.
see it, but they don't see it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even if we're wrong, just to give them that fire under their, you know
Their
what?
belly. Yeah. No, I totally get what you mean. And I think I love it when people say to me, "Oh, Tan, I don't know. I don't know if I should go down this route." But this is where well, for us as the expert, right, within our fields, this is where we need to then show them why it's super important that they do that. And I remember, and I'm glad you asked this question as well, Tiffany, because I actually had a client who felt exactly the same as what you were just saying just now. They're a trichologist, and obviously they study trichology, which, for those of you who don't know, is obviously studying the hair follicles and the scalp and the conditions of the scalp and why certain things happen to us, right, in that respect. And what happened was, I showed her some examples, and this is what I usually do, right? When I'm doing some logos, for example, for clients and so forth, I always put forward familiar options, but then I love throwing in there a non-familiar option. And what I mean by that is those familiar options are going to be something similar to what you'll see in the industry. However, I will always encourage, let's step away from that, because this is the reason why you don't want to go in this route, down this route, especially if one of your struggles or one of your annoyances is the fact that, you know what, everybody else looks the same, everybody else is doing something similar to me. Well, why not start by sorting out your logo and be different, but still keep it relevant? So, for example, what happened with her, I showed her what was usually shown, but obviously done in a really cool kind of a way, and that's a hair follicle. Imagine a strand, a cross section of a strand going into the sort of skin type of thing, and just creating a real cool illustration around that. But then what I then decided to do is just deep dive into the idea of a hair follicle in the first place, the different types of hair strands. For those of you who don't know, straight, curly, and super curly has a different type of cross section. So you'll have a circular, oval, and a slightly curved or like a moon shape sort of cross section, right? Now, with those, I then created a different type of a logo. It was very abstract. However, it was still super relevant. And you know what? She actually loved it because it was still relevant, because it showed the science behind the actual, the idea of trichology. And what it then did was actually create a talking point. So it added even more interest. Now, for all those who are wanting to stand out, but don't know how, or for all those who feel like staying within amongst everybody else is the safer option to do you know what? That's entirely your opinion. If you feel like that, go for it. But if you are just have that tiny little thing that's niggling at you and just makes you want to just try a little something new, don't be afraid to try it, because so long as you keep it congruent to what it is that you do, keep it super relevant to what that it is that you do, but do it in a really cool kind of a way, you're going to stand out naturally. And yeah, I know sometimes it can feel a bit uncomfortable standing out, being, part of the limelight. And, that takes time to feel comfortable from stepping out and standing out in that kind of a way. That you start standing in a different kind of a way, with confidence, with clarity, with certainty, because you know what you've put out, what you're showing up as, it's super powerful. And you're still representing your field in a way that still matches what you're about. So yeah, that was my very long-winded answer to your question, Tiffany. But I hope that helped.
I loved it. You were spot on, and
Thank you.
Kind of just reassuring and confirming how I feel about these people. Why blend in when you were born to stand out? And I tell them, if anyone can do this, it's you.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're creative, and I don't know. I mean, the worst thing that someone could ever call me, in my own opinion, is normal, average, or boring. You know what I mean? Oh, you're just like everyone else. What an insult. I mean, take that back. I don't want that.
Take that back. How rude. How very dare you.
Yuck. I don't want to do that. Like, bah. I'm going to just be like everyone else, just like another sheep in the herd. No, that's just like, ew. If someone told me I was just normal, oh, you're normal, just like everyone else, Tiffany. Oh my gosh, something has to change. I'm just gonna just careful what I might do with that. I might just like,
yeah. But to
I
your
don't know
point
what
there,
I would do, but
to your point as to what you just said, something has to change. If you're tired of being lost in that ocean of the noise, amongst the noise of what your competition's getting up to, well then, yeah, something has to change. You need to think of a different way to make sure that you stand out. And yes, you do have to stand out to a certain extent. Standing out is not a bad thing.
Well, and unfortunately, fortunately, it's not me that ever has that problem.
No, I know you don't. But yeah, but to anybody,
I'm a little bit the opposite.
Let's stress that. No,
to an unfortunate extreme.
But to anybody who's feeling
to telling them that when they're uncomfortable because they're getting noticed or whatever it is, to telling them that's a beautiful thing. Thank God you're getting noticed. Thank goodness that people are noticing the differences from what you're bringing to the world. Because if we were all the same, like we'd be all Stepford wives, or we'd be all just boring or whatever. Then then none of us. I don't know. And just in this world with people's self-esteem and sense of self-worth, they're just scared to stand out. But some people just are just born to. They're never gonna blend in, and that's what's so great.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think it's just giving it a new name. It's giving it a new name, isn't it? And I think
right, totally,
and changing your belief around it. But no, thank you for asking that question. It's super.
Thanks
cool
so
question.
much for your answer, and what a great show and what a great interview. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome, Tiffany.
Thank
you. And people who are on stage, please continue to be on stage. Those who have also asked questions, we're gonna have a rapid fire question towards the end of this podcast. So I want to welcome Thomas from LinkedIn. Thomas, thank you so much for patiently waiting all this time. So nice to see you. Thomas is the only one, along with Karen, who listens to my show early morning from Australia. So Thomas, I don't know, it's around 3 a.m. I guess, 2 or 3 a.m. right now in Australia. So nice to see you, my friend. Do you have a question?
Good morning.
Anything you like to ask my guest?
Yeah, sure. Good morning. Thanks,
morning,
Jason. And Good morning, Tanya. Or is it Tanya or Tanya?
It's Tanya, but a lot of people call me Tanya. It doesn't matter, so long as it's a nice name. That's all that matters.
Well,
so yeah,
I'll try to remember Tanya. But
cool. Yeah,
it's
it's all good.
4:07 a.m. in Australia. So
Oh wow.
but I'm still awake. I'm always awake, listening, and especially it's interesting when I listen to Jason's chats and podcasts. Whenever Tiffany comes on, she gives me a little bit of extra oomph to keep me going. So thank you,
Brilliant.
Tiffany.
There you go.
I had two little questions or two statements. First one was earlier on, about half an hour ago, you mentioned about hitting a good nerve, and I like that because I remember my mother used to say to me, or he or she hit a raw nerve, and I think you put a positive spin on it. If you talk about engagement, you're hitting. If you can hit that good nerve, then you can get that connection. And also, secondly, you talked about community versus and audience, and I think you're dead right, because I had a little bit of an analogy, and that is, if you look at within the community, obviously we were locked down for 2 years, and in Australia it was very significant. We had 261 days of lockdown, which was the worst in the world, or the most restrictive in the world. But when I go to a coffee shop most mornings, quite early. It opens at 6 a.m, so I only have to wait 2 more hours. But in reference to community, when I go to that coffee shop, it's not just about getting a cup of coffee and taking it away. It's meeting up with people that I've had a good connection with, versus all the other people in the coffee shop who are, if you like, in this analogy, the audience, because I know them, but I don't really know them. So I think if you use that analogy in your space or anyone's space, it's that kind of inner circle versus the outer circle. And I think once you've made a good connection with your inner circle, you know them, and you know their a little bit of their DNA, and you know how to engage with them, easily in future connections. And I think at a superficial level, that's probably a good kind of example from a sort of a marketing brand type situation.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And I think there's a lot that you've touched base there, and I think the minute we start recognizing or becoming aware with certain points, especially like those, I think we start moving better, don't we? We start moving better. But thank you for that.
Yeah, it just becomes easier. Sure.
Yeah, it does. It's all about those purposeful moves, like what I spoke about before. You're learning your VPV, what that is for yourself. So your purpose, that part there, the reason why you're doing what you're doing. Or I know Carrie, who's in the on the Clubhouse side of things. I remember we used to have discussions about, but Tan, I don't know what my why is, damn it. So, but I remember she changed the word to until I. So what is your until I moment? What is that part? Maybe when you start switching up certain phrases, where you're working towards. Then when you know that goal or that target, you then start making those more purposeful moves. So that to-do list that we keep trying to make sure that we tick off every now and then. Well, now we're putting things on there that actually match or are in alignment to that purpose. So it's all about making purposeful moves for sure. So but thank you for that.
Pleasure. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Thomas. Do you have a follow-up question before we move on to Alma?
I'm just really keen on the the whole energy aspect that you mentioned, and I think it helps in any interaction and stuff. Not just even if you have an interview or something, and you can but your brand, and if you make that energy, it just really helps with the connection, and it facilitates good energy and good vibes, and it's a win-win. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Thomas. So I want to move to Alma
Can I say
Sanchez.
something?
Yeah, go ahead, Tiffany.
Hey, Tiffany. Just really quick, I love that the until I moment. I was just thinking, do I have one of those? And then I was like, until I die. But then we don't know what happens when we die. I mean, some people really do.
Yeah.
So you know what? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Until I die. But then after that, I don't know. The until I moment.
It
I've
could be
never heard of that before. I'm gonna use that.
I reach 1,000 people, until I reach a million, change a million,
No, see, I don't
that
really
kind of,
work like that.
yeah.
And
But this is
even if
it.
we
That's the
have
whole
that,
point. Yeah,
it all
that's the whole
changes
point.
once we reach that.
Yeah, and then you reach a new goal. Then your goals, and that's the thing, right? A good point there as well. Your point, your goals, your targets naturally change when you do get to that level. So then that's when you've got all that time until that point happens, and then you get to choose. Thankfully, you get to choose that word. You get to choose what your next target is now. You know. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's just never satisfying for me, like personally,
Mm.
until I
Mm.
reach my goal. No,
Yeah.
because my goals will always change. They'll always increase. They'll always be more. Or until
And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. For those of you who can't figure out what your why is, switch the word why out till until I, or whatever resonates better with you in that has that kind of a meaning to it. But yeah.
Beautifully said. I just wanted to
Thank you, my love.
I meant to
No, that's
interrupt.
cool.
Sorry, Jason, but I had a comment on that because
it was
I was a
heavy
little
on
late
your
on my
heart. You had
interruption
to.
because of finding the screen where my mute button is. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to comment on that. But
it was on your heart. You had to say it. It's all good. It's all good.
It's all good.
Until
you,
I interrupt you and comment on that, I was not satisfied.
Excellent. Love it. Love it.
I
Love
want to
it.
say hi to Alma, and Alma said she had a comment she wanted to share. So Alma, please unmute on LinkedIn. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Jason. And I really appreciate how you always put things together thoughtfully, especially the questions to ask. And the comment that I have is, you talked about competition or collaboration. And I really am seeing that instead of looking at people as competition, as a threat, I can see them as opportunities of collaboration, because doing editing, there's things that I see and then there's things that I don't see, and it's good to have multiple eyes on documents. So instead of me feeling threatened by somebody else, being able to reach out and just touch base and say, hey, do you mind helping me out with this, and maybe in future projects we can work together. I think that when we start to change our mindset, instead of feeling threatened by people and we start to see them as opportunities of growth, then that is a win-win for all of us.
I love what you said there. Opportunities of growth. That's exactly it. And prime example, right? So Jason didn't have to ask me at all to come and do this interview, right? Because we're both pretty much in the same line of business.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you did, Jason. And I typically follow other like-minded people, all those who are in the branding industry, because I'm out here to learn. I'm out here to better myself. I'm out here to grow as much as I can. But I love the fact that I can do it side by side with one of my peers, And I think that's super powerful. Too many people are trying to think that your competition is a negative thing. And it doesn't have to be at all. It really doesn't have to be. It all depends on the meaning that you put behind certain things, right? In general. But the minute you start thinking from a growth mindset is the minute things start growing, naturally. So yeah, but I love that. Thank you, Alma. Nice meeting you.
Alma, is there anything you like to share with Tanya right now? Anything else you like to contribute? Feel free.
And just say, nice to meet you too, Tanya. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. I want to say hi to Sarah and Carrie. Thank you so much, guys, for patiently waiting on Clubhouse. So let's say hi to Sarah. And Sarah's from Thailand. She also tries to stay back as much as possible. It's very early in Thailand. So how are you, Sarah? Please flash your mic if you're available. And go ahead. Do you have a question? Is there anything you'd like to contribute?
Good morning, Jason. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here in early morning. I just can't sleep. Maybe it's too much of caffeine. I'm not so sure, but so be it. Yes, I have a question. You talk about community and you talk about numbers. What if your community loves you, but they don't really love the kind of work you do?
They don't
I
love.
knew it, Jason.
I'm so
So they
sorry.
love
Go.
Then
you.
what?
They love you, but they don't love the work that you do. So technically, they're not your target audience. So you're speaking to the wrong people, and or it's more so a case of where is this community, for number one, and two, what is it that you're sharing with them, and does this community follow you, for example, in a specific members only in a members only group, or is it literally just like on a friends platform, like on Facebook, for example, the general friends follow?
Yeah, that's a
What
nice
is
nice
that?
way of putting it through. Yeah. Is the community following you for some sort of a benefit, reward,
Yeah.
recognition? I personally, I think you nailed it spot on, Tanya. If you're catering to the wrong audience, they would never value what you're doing.
Yeah. And do you know what? That's okay, because it wasn't for them in the first place, But when you're talking to the right people, they're naturally going to love it, and they're naturally going to stay and want to listen and to find out more. That's who you want to make sure that you're doing, is talking to the right people.
I'm a little bit confused now because you see, like, I understand what you're saying, but then you see, let's say, for example, Instagram, Facebook, or any other social platform, we look at the numbers, we look at how our numbers of followers increases and so forth and so forth. Okay, and we know, and we get excited because these numbers are increasing. Like you said, watch for your numbers, and they're increasing, and you keep posting, and the more you post, the contents and what you create as your own originality is getting the likes, but they're not reaching out to you in terms of actually doing the work. That's what is annoying me. But I can't.
Got
The
you.
thing is, yeah, and it is. It's not like they are real followers. They are. Sometimes, like when you look at YouTube, you follow the bloggers, right? You
Yeah.
like them. That's why you follow them.
Yes,
But
yes, yes,
it's not
yes.
like. But you don't reach out to them because there it's no value, or it doesn't resonate with you, or in terms of business. So sometimes I feel branding is one thing, but in community and numbers, I'm not so sure about that.
So, and I think this is the other aspect, right? So I always say, like, especially as entrepreneurs, there are 4 things that we need to make sure that that you're always going to need in your underneath your belt, right? Number 1 is tenacity. Then you've got persistence. Then you've also got the idea of we have tenacity, persistence, perseverance as well. And equally, this final thing is the patience aspect. And I'm not saying that you're impatient at all. However, I get that whole feeling of you feel like nobody is reaching out to you for your services. And it's simply because they're not ready yet. And that's okay. But that doesn't mean that you should stop doing what you're doing. You still have to keep going. You still have to keep maintaining. You still have to be consistently showing up as you, because they're still there. So pay attention to that part. They haven't dropped off. They haven't left you. Do you know what I mean? So that's a good thing. They're just not quite ready yet. And that's okay on their side of things, Because think about it, I don't know what your service is, and I don't know what your product is. Obviously people still need to be made aware of or understand the true value of what it is that you have to offer. I have people like that in my own community, and I remember one of my mentors actually said to me, Tan, they're not buying because they don't value what it is that you offer. So it's up to us as that service provider or that product provider to showcase all the time why what it is that we're doing for people is super value, super key, and super important, because you know the true value. So keep sharing that. And I know they, as much as they're not doing anything right now, doesn't mean that they're not doing anything, or that they won't do anything ever, you know? So it's just, unfortunately, sometimes with all this kind of stuff, it's a bit of a waiting game, you know? It's a bit of a waiting game. You know, that the idea of like waiting for a bus or that, or whatever it is on your side of things, where you wait and wait and wait, nothing comes. When you don't need it, everything comes, right? So it's just a case of, we just have to be patient in the sense of, let's keep doing what we're doing. Let's keep putting that value out there. Concentrate on the fact that nobody's left. That's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing. People are still listening. That's an equally even good thing, you know, an even better thing. And think about how you're always constantly nurturing your audience, you know, many ways of going about doing that. But yeah, but think about that. What are you doing that with that regards? So
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
hope
get
that
it.
helped.
Yeah, yeah, it does. That
Mm.
means I just have to keep my eyes and my eyes open and not miss the bus and keep going, I guess.
Keep
Thanks a
going, keep
lot.
going. Don't give up. Whatever you do not keep, and do
Oh
not give
God.
up. And to that point as well, like I remember somebody said to me, they knew of a friend who started like like shea butter, very naturally based products, right? And they've approached so many people, so many, and they were ready to give up. And I remember saying to him, tell them that they cannot stop. I know they want to, and I know it feels like signs are saying for them to say no, but start thinking about, okay, cool, that people don't want it right now, and that's absolutely fine. So now let me redirect my message in a different kind of a way, or let me make sure that I still let them know the importance of it. Share that value. That value aspect is super key and important to always be sharing on your social media platforms, through your websites, through any, what I like to call your talking tools. So any device that is out there that, that is representing you is known as your talking tool in my world. So, what is that for yourself? How are you making sure that you're still showing up in a way that your message is still being resonated with, even when you're not there? So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, so I get it. So you're trying to say, keep going, watch your community, watch your numbers, uh, don't miss the bus, be as creative as possible. And even if the numbers, that means the content of the post or whatever we do might not work at that very moment, but if we
Yes,
keep
that's okay.
going
Yeah.
and we just do as what we like and not worry about anything, we should make it, right?
Yeah. And when you say you're doing what you like, you got to do what you like, but in honor of what it is that you're about, in honor of what your product or your service is about. So this is what I'm saying, is sometimes we throw the world at social media and hope that everything, something will stick. Think about what your values are. Think about what your purpose is. Think about what your vision is. I can't stress that enough. When you know that, you start making more purposeful moves, especially when it comes to the likes of your social media content, what you're putting out there. So now I'm going to use your values as an example, right? Say, for example, your values was something to do with freedom, living freely. Think about what freedom and living freely really means to you. And off the top of my head, I'm going to choose it to be like, do you know what? I'm actually spending time with my loved ones, with not having to worry about the work that's going on in the background, right? So I will then pick a content piece that represents, hey, here's me living, either in that freedom moment or expressing that freedom, powerful feeling, and I'll showcase that. Or I might choose a quote that equally references it. Or I might see something else out there, or it might be people playing, it might be people enjoying themselves in some kind of a way. It could be, like when you're on an airplane and you look out the window, out the clouds. I love doing that, by the way. But when you look at the clouds, to me, that it's just freeing, So what is that for yourself? And then use that to always translate your message on your social media, throughout your social media.
Thank you. And thank you, Jason, for having me.
Absolutely. It's all about experimenting. Consider yourself as those scientists mixing stuff at different components and chemical components together to see what comes out of it. So that's pretty much it. It's all about experimenting. So thank you, Tanya. I think it was spot on, and I'm glad we were able to address Sarah's concern. And I want to say hi to Carrie. Carrie has been patiently waiting, so thank you so much.
She has.
Hi there.
Carrie's
Can
my
you?
other colleague. Hello, Carrie. Sorry, my love.
Yeah, welcome. Do you have a question? Is there anything you'd
Hi,
like to
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. We can. Go for it, honey.
I do. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. My question is, if you are a person who wears many hats and does lots of different things, although they all point to the same area, how do you represent that in one brand?
In one brand. So the question was, if you're a person who wears many different hats, how do you represent that in one brand? Super cool question. I love that. And at the end of the day, I think when you do that, especially if you are a business owner of multiple companies, right? This is probably where your personal brand comes into play, in the sense where you get to represent you as a person, but equally all the things, the really super cool things that you do as well. So imagine if I'm going to use the value thing again, right? If you're using your values to share on social media, for example, or even for your website, it's something different. But through on social media, imagine you start talking about a specific value. I'm going to use freedom again. It's just in my head, right? Use it to share what's happened with you in a specific brand, in one of your businesses. So freedom, it could be like, you know what, I was out. I'm going to use the Queens because obviously Carrie is one of the co-founders of the Queens as well, so she's one of my colleagues. So it could be like, I was out with the Queens today, and you know what, we had so much fun just being free. And it could be represented in that way. Or I was teaching one of my students a really cool vocal technique that really helped to strengthen their voice. And because of that, they're now free to go out and do what it is that they want to do. Speak on stages, sing on stages, all those different aspects. So you get to use your values in that kind of a way to help round up your businesses. But I always say, if you can, obviously when you're talking specifically about your businesses, that's when you've got to separate them out, because you don't want the business message to be confused with one another. So you'll say, for example, I know I'm going to use Carrie. It's a perfect example, right? So Carrie, obviously she has her personal brand. That's something completely separate. But then the two businesses are, one is the Queens in Business Club, which has its own separate page. And then also her Vocal Academy, which also has its own separate page as well. Now, those two will work differently because their messages are slightly different. The values are pretty much similar, but the messages are something different. So when you're talking about your brand separately, you've got to be mindful as to what the brand is about. This is what I was saying, is when you're talking about your personal brand versus your business brand. I love this question, because now it's just really showing a good example as to why it's important to always make it about your message and your audience. What is that audience looking for from that business, versus your personal brand? It's always going to be like a summary of your businesses in some aspects, but at the same time, it's what you're believing about. So yeah, Carrie, I hope that helped, my love, and equally everybody else in the audience. I hope that kind of helped.
Thank you. Very helpful. Cheers, Tan.
Thank you, lovey.
Lovely.
Cool.
Lovely, Carrie. Thank you so much for being here. Let's actually move on to quickly the rapid fire questions. So, rapid fire questions.
I'm loving that.
Okay, I got a few rapid fire questions for you, Tanya, and one common question which I would be asking everybody on stage. Okay, so starting now, question number 1. If you had to describe yourself as an animal, which one would that be?
That's hilarious. I was trying to think about this. I'm just going to go with eagle. Eagle came to my head. I know it's a bird, but yeah, eagle. I'm going to go with eagle.
All right, eagle it is. Okay, question number 2. What is your biggest complaint being in the branding space?
Oh my goodness. The biggest complaint I would have is not enough people know how important a brand actually is to them. So yeah,
That is
that's
so
pretty much
true.
it.
Yeah, not many knows. Actually, not many people know the difference. Okay,
Yes.
about what branding is and how about some people also think logo is a brand, which is not really the
Oh my
case.
gosh, that's my biggest one. Sorry. The biggest one is that people still think well, not I'm not going to say people. I'm going to say some people still think that your logo is your brand and equally your website is your brand or your stationery
which
assets are
is
your
not
brand.
which is
No.
not it's the
It's a
component.
no. Yes, exactly that. Exactly that.
Question
Okay,
number
cool.
3: what's the most daring thing you have ever done?
The most daring thing. Oh, I've dined in the dark. So there's an eating experience over here in the UK where you can literally it's called dining in the dark, and you get to choose from a menu which is poultry, fish, or exotic. I went with exotic, and I equally dined in the dark, so I didn't know exactly what I was eating until after I ate it. And what's super cool about this particular restaurant is the fact that all the waiters are blind. So we're now, you're sort of eating in their space, right? And it's really cool
It's super creepy,
experience.
Tanya. I don't know how you did it,
It's
but
creep, but I did it. I loved it. I was the one having fun. Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm eating." I was
were they
like, "Bring it
only
on!"
offering you juices? Like, was it only water-based diet?
Oh no. It's all like solid foods. There were certain questions I did ask just to be sure. I was like, wait, is all of this food gonna be cooked? Cool, bring it on. Okay, fine. And it transpired. Sorry for any vegetarians or vegans and so forth, but it transpired that I actually did have kangaroo, zebra, and I forget what this. I think it was it camel? I can't remember. But yeah. So there we go. But equally, all of them tasted like chicken, lamb, and and beef. So yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
all
But
right,
yeah.
all right, all right. Last question for you. Okay, how many
Mhm.
pairs of shoe do you own?
Oh my goodness. I've actually cleared out quite a few shoes, but this is a healthy number, I'd like to say. I'm going to say there's probably about 20 pairs of shoes.
Holy
I'm lying. It's
shit.
probably about 30. It's a healthy number. But these are shoes that I haven't worn regularly. It's been built up over
I mean, you got
time.
so many
So
pair,
yeah.
it would not be regular anyway.
Yeah, exactly that. I probably have to have another clear out after your response. Thank you, Jason. So, but otherwise, yeah. No, these are shoes that they've just been built up over time. I'm pretty sure, we've got those shoes that we haven't worn in like 5 years. But yeah, it's all good.
All right, all right. Common question for everyone because I don't want to bring the shoe part and have like a competition. So if you can go back in time, and remember, guys, this is for everyone on stage. If you could go back in time, what year would you travel to and why?
Oh my goodness. If I could go back in time, not within my lifetime, it could be any time, right?
Anytime, yes.
I want to go to, I don't know why, but it's always intrigued me, like the time of the Harlem Renaissance, because it was a time of like creativity, poetry, aside from the sad things that also went on. But it was also a time of creativity, poetry, expression.
What year this would
Um,
be?
I think, and please, nobody, don't quote me on this. I'm literally just going to Google it right now. This is how I'm familiar. I want to say, was it the 60s? Oh, here we go. Let's see.
Harlem
Yeah.
Renaissance art movement started
Oh,
from
30s,
1920s to
20s.
yeah,
Yeah, 20s to 30s.
yes.
So there was that era. And then, but also, and then there's a film that actually came out recently by the founder of The Roots. So basically, it was talking about the idea. Was it the soul? I can't get any of my phrasing out now today. There we go. Um, Basically, it was an event that happened in the 60s with all like Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight, a lot of like black artists and so forth. And this was all going on around about the same time that Woodstock was happening, but it would never got televised. But I love that whole era. that era was just nuts and crazy.
sounds
But at the
fun.
same time, yeah, exactly. It looked fun. It looked fun to a certain reason, to a certain extent. As again, aside from the craziness that was happening alongside of it, but still, yeah.
All right, I'm
I
gonna
wouldn't
ask
mind
the
that.
same question, starting with Carrie. So, Carrie, I don't know if you got the question. Do you want me to ask the question again?
Yeah, go for it. I think you might
Carrie?
need to repeat it. Carrie, are you there, my love?
I'm here, sorry. I was just in a black spot in Streatham. So, yeah, I got the question. I would go back to 1984. And
Ooh.
the reason is that that is probably the happiest year of my childhood. I had so much family around, living in the house with us, people visiting all the time. There was always music, games, laughter, and I just remember it being a really, really happy period.
I love that. I love that.
Awesome. 1984. Okay. Okay, we have you in 1920s. We have in 1984.
I went way back.
So let's ask Sarah. Sarah, if you're awake, okay, how would you answer that question?
Oh my God, Carrie, you stole me. I'm 1984. Same.
The same as well.
Yeah.
Why? But why?
Because that was the best period of my time, and not only that, it's the time where I graduated, so I could actually reset the whole future, knowing the future today. So, and that's the time, like, that was still around and things were different. It was perhaps the peak season in Thailand as well, with economy rising, and I would know exactly which land to buy and become super rich by now. So 1984 it is. And you know what? It was the best time in terms of music with Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, Stevie Wonder, you name it, the best of it. They were all there. Queens, Scorpions, you name it. All the best musicians. Who do we have today?
Yeah. That question right there.
God, I really want to step in here. God.
Oh, Carrie, come on, Carrie, go for it.
Oh no! I was
fine.
joking. Just because I'm a musician, so I
Yes.
love all music.
Okay, maybe we can add David Bowie as well.
David Bowie. Oh, you just did. So there you go.
Well, thank you so much
Love
for
it.
sharing that, Sarah. Okay, same question goes to Thomas. So, Thomas, if you're available, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'll be specific. 1955.
Oh,
Why?
The reason is that was when Elvis was 20, and if I was kind of fascinated, by his life and what he did right and what he did wrong. But if I was an influencer and I was able to influence him in 1955, because his manager was Tom, which is my name, Colonel Tom Parker, but I would manage him a little bit more differently so that he would have lived to be longer than 42 years of age.
yeah. His story's a little sad the way it ended. Have you actually seen his film?
Not yet. I am gonna be
I haven't seen
watching
the
it.
film, but I've
Yeah.
heard that. I listened to the soundtrack, and I really enjoy that. It really inspires me.
Well,
a
very
lot, the music.
thoughtful of you, Thomas, that he wants to go back in
It's
time. Okay, so people so far who have answered this question, they want to go back to their time for their own selfish reasons. And in Thomas' case, is the only one genuinely who wants to go back to do something good.
Well, mine is to party and have fun and to actually realize, how to be treated, all that kind of stuff. So it's all leading to a good cause.
Okay, all right.
Jason, it's not entirely for the other person's good, because if I was his manager, I would get 10% of the cut. So I would be a billionaire by now. Yeah.
All right. So there is a selfish reason behind there too.
Elvis's manager's got 50% back in the day.
Oh my god! So it would
right.
have been a good
Sorry.
reason. There you go. Yeah. Oh my goodness! So
I'm
you
not
would have
greedy-
given
I'm
him
not
even
greedy,
more
Tanya.
money. There you go.
not
There you
greedy.
go.
So
You know what they say, money makes the world go round. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah,
You
it,
never
it
know.
helps it for sure. It helps it for sure. There you
Thomas, you would
go.
have ended up being the next Elon Musk. You never know by now. So a lot of probability there. So I want to thank you for that contribution. I want to just give Alma the opportunity. Alma, if you're available, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, so I would say early 90s, 1990s. That's when I joined the Air Force, and I would definitely have done things a lot different than what I did. So, yeah.
Love it.
We love this a lot. So thank you so much, guys, for sharing that. So I want to give Tanya the opportunity to go ahead and promote her business. So I have the link, six
Oh, I
principles
just
to
shared it as well. Yeah,
yeah.
go for it.
So tngdesigns.co.uk / give me a sec. I had it note.
Ebook.
Ebook, yes.
Yes,
And that
yes.
should take you to the website. I will post it on to the event description as well. So guys, if you're on LinkedIn, you should be able to see this shortly. Okay, so Tanya, so tell us what is happening. How can people reach out to you? What is the best way to reach out? Uh,
Yes, there's a lot happening, Jason.
yeah,
So
let's hear
on
that.
my side of things, obviously, the best way to reach me is if you go onto that link over here on Clubhouse. We've got the link pasted in the session right now. I've also dropped another link in the chat box as well, so folks go ahead and check that out. And equally, LinkedIn folks, I know you've just been given the link or what's in the description as well. So go ahead and click on that and literally go ahead and equally book a consultation call. I say a consultation call. It's a brand strategy session with me for 30 minutes where you and I just get to talk about where you are right now, where you're wanting to go, and equally what we can do to sort of like help take you to that next stage, especially if you're feeling a little stuck and lost amongst that noise of your competition. So go ahead and check that out. And then, yeah, so a lot is coming up on obviously if you check out my bio as well, you will see that I'm also going to be part of an event, going to be hosting it with my lovely co-founders of the Queens in Business Club, Carrie, who you see here, Shim, who was here earlier, and we've got Jen, one of our directors as well, who's in the audience. Hello, Jen. um yeah, so we have an event coming up at the end of the year called the Queens, called the Brain Like a Queen. And men, we apologize, it is not for you. However, it is for the women in business, for female entrepreneurs. Now, if you are over here in the UK, please, folks, get yourselves over to this event because it's going to be super powerful. We like to call it or describe it as a 360 experience. And we say that for a reason, because not only are you learning about certain things, not only are you getting to speak to different people and network with them, you're also literally feeling the empowerment being shared within that room. And it is literally, it is powerful, and it is an energy that stays with you, not just for the event, but it sticks with you in a good kind of a way all the way through until you're ready to make your move, and we are there to help support that and to encourage it. And we've got a hell of a lot of speakers on board as well. And again, I think a couple of them are in this audience. So yeah, so that's what we have going on. And there's just a lot going on. And equally, just folks keep following me and to stay updated as to what does happen. And yeah, and that is pretty much it. I say pretty much it. There's a lot still, but
All
oh my
right,
goodness.
all right, all right. So thank you so much for that, Tanya. It's always been a
Thank you,
pleasure,
Jason.
having you on
Yes,
today's show. So much to learn from you. If you do
absolutely.
get the opportunity, guys, please follow Tanya on LinkedIn. And the least you can do is also endorse her for her knowledge. Could be for branding. Say in my case,
Yeah,
branding and podcasting. So wherever you feel you can endorse us, it does help us to reach the right target audience and present ourselves in front
absolutely.
of them. So yeah. So thank you so much, Tanya, once again for being here, and also accepting my request at a very short notice. To be quite honest, guys, I had a cancellation and I was looking for another guest, and she was very very happy enough to accommodate herself. In fact, she has an
Absolutely.
appointment right after this show. She's still waiting to this extent. So I'm really, really grateful. So thank you so much, Tanya. You take care of yourself. I want to thank everyone who is on the stage and also listening to us, for supporting us. There is going to be a time zone change following next week. Daylight savings has come to an end. So whenever daylight savings come to an end, people on different time zone, especially let's say India, we move our times by an hour. We go ahead. So to avoid confusion, I have actually posted time zone differences link on all my future episodes just to help you out. Okay, so next week we're going to speak about the power of persistence with Martin Rowinsky, who is a well-known CEO from Los Angeles, and he has a recruitment-based company for C-suite and board members only. So we're going to speak about persistence, his journey from communist Poland to all the way to LA, and how he built his business, the things which he had to do to be persistent. So thank you so much. You take care of yourself, guys. Stay in touch, and have a nice day, morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're in the world. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, guys.